ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಗಣೇಶ್ ಜಿ.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಯಾಕಿದ್ದೀರಿ?
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ನೀವು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ?
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
Okay, today Simon is there? Sushma and Simon?
They must be joining now.
Okay.
I think we have come early, I think. It is supposed to start only at 7 o'clock. We have got another 8-9 minutes.
Yes.
So how is Bangalore?
Pardon?
How is Bangalore?
Oh, Bangalore, it is raining and stopping.
Oh.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Wellington branch of the Theosophical Society. This is our continuing course in Introduction to Theosophy. It's great to have you here, so we'll have a moment's silence before we begin and do our universal invocation.
There are announcements first.
Okay. Please repeat after me. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom.
O hidden life, vibrant in every atom.
O hidden light, shining in every creature.
O hidden light, shining in every creature.
O hidden love, embracing all in oneness.
O hidden love, embracing all in oneness.
May each who feels himself as one with thee
May each who feel themselves as one with thee
know they are also one with every other.
know they are also one with every other.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you. Well, good evening. As you know, our society was formed to create the nucleus of a new society, a society of divine wisdom, where we come together as inquiring human beings, encouraging in study of comparative religion, philosophy and science, and investigation into ourselves and unexplained laws of nature to bring about that nucleus of a new society where our emphasis is on unity of one life, which we're all part of, as opposed to the distinctions we get in the forms. Now, as students who are all inquiring, we need to allow the liberty that we covet for ourselves, freedom of thought and experience. So there is no authority figures in the society, which is great, and we're all helping each other on the journey. So that is our purpose. We meet regularly to uplift humanity, with a spiritual upliftment of humanity. We do this by changing consciousness at a meeting. So we actually present thought forms and higher vibratory emotions into the community. And in doing this, it's an opportunity for service, because the Theosophical Society is about service, but by way of changing consciousness, by changing ourselves and coming together. Announcements.
To the motto first.
So our motto is, there is no religion higher than truth. So we're all inquiring into the nature of reality to find out what is real and true.
Sorry, it's going up and down today. Okay, this is the announcement.
Okay, so we have the National President, Richard Sell, coming on the 11th of July. He'll be talking about search for harmony. And in August, we have Horace Tanowski coming from Christchurch, long-standing member, and he's also going to be doing a talk which into some of his area of expertise, which we will be able to update you on in due course. We also have our YouTube channel.
Okay.
And Sushma does a lot of work in uploading our talks. And it does take a lot of time and energy to do that, but they're there for you to have a look at.
Yeah, we have around 18 that are live. I've uploaded 3 more. Just a little bit more work on that needs to be done. Hopefully, I'll have the whole study course on soon. Okay, now we come to me.
All right. Well, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mrs. Sushma Weber, who is a past president of the Wellington branch. She's been in the society for nigh on 30 years.
40.
40.
Yeah.
And she worked at the international headquarters for 5 years on and off in the editorial department. She has worked as the lodge president in the branch and secretary. She's done many presentations around the country and written articles. She was also the national media coordinator for a period of time as well. And yeah, she puts a lot of dedication and work into the service she gives. So her topic tonight is the last session of our basic course in Theosophy, our introductory course. And her topic tonight is spiritual life for the man of the world. So over to you, Sushma. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Simon. So since I am managing the technology and doing this, so please bear with me. Okay, thank you, everyone. So today is the last day for our session on basic theosophy. And my topic was the spiritual life for the man of the world. So I'll still have to use the mic. Okay, so I just would like us to ask ourselves, who is the man of the world? Is it limited to gender? Actually, it's not. It's an idiom. So a man of the world is a person who is very proficient in and successful in the world. They have worldly wisdom. They know what to do and how to get along in the world. So that's why I put the picture of the globe. So all of us who are living in the world and are navigating its challenges and everything, we are all man of the world. And on the left, you'll see a person who's a monk. So that would be a person who's following the monastic life. They have decided that they would devote their lives to gaining enlightenment. So the phrase man of the world is an idiom, and it includes all of us who are successful and living life in the world. Now, the spiritual life, what is the next thing? What is the spiritual life and why the spiritual life? Now, according to the chapter that is based on Jeffrey Hudson's book, Basic Theosophy, it's a chapter in that of the same title. So what Jeffrey Hudson's saying is anyone who has evolved to a certain extent and has had a sort of spiritual awakening will become interested in the spiritual life. It's like it's as natural as a bud or a flower in nature. No one tells the plant it's time to flower. It just happens. So that's what happens to a human being as well. And so in case, I'm sure all of us present here at the meeting today have had this awakening, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Why are we even here to think about the spiritual life? So it's happened naturally after many lifetimes of effort and service, and here we are today. And what is the next thing? There are 2 things that happen when someone decides that a spiritual life is important. So there are 2 things that continue to happen. One is spiritual awakening, and then we have to have ordered effort. That's the phrase that Jeffrey Hudson uses. So how to do this ordered effort while living in the world. So that's what this session is about. Okay, so what happens with spiritual awakening? There are 3 interior experiences that you will notice in yourself. A person who's at this stage seeks answers to the problems of life. And they try to find logic in religion, and they also want justice from God. So that's a stage. So you will, if you are feeling these things, if you're feeling the need to find answers, this is what's happening. And then we have lots of people questioning religion. They want to find logic. They don't want to believe blindly. That's another sign as well. And then I'm not sure about the word God. I'm sure we all want justice. Nobody just sits back and says, please, I have a doormat written on my forehead. Come and wipe your feet on me. So that's what, when you're spiritually awakening, you're going to question things and you're going to ask yourself and ask the world for answers as well. So the second thing that happens is an awakening of the will and divine discontent. I'm sure some of you have felt this. You might have succeeded in what you were doing. You have reached certain goals. You have achieved certain things in your life and you're still not happy. So that's another thing that can happen. So, and then you feel that you have the will that is awakening, and then there is discontent. So again, you're going to search for answers. You're going to look around and search for more answers. So that's what happens. And then there is a diminution of the sense of separateness. What does that mean? Slowly but surely, you will start feeling the expansion of the mind and expansion of the heart. You will find that you're including not just your family, but your neighbor, your community, the world, and other human beings, and the race. The word race is used, but all races. So that's another sign too. If you find yourself becoming more expansive, these are some of the interior experiences that are signs that spiritual awakening is taking place in a person. So ordered effort, where and how? So where do you perform these ordered effort and how do you do this? So the two things that come when you think of ordered effort is if you weigh against the monastic life of becoming a monk, most people think you have to give up the world to live a spiritual life. However, that's not necessarily true. You can live the spiritual life living in the midst of the world, carrying on with whatever business you are about, whether you're a parent, a teacher, electrician, politician, any profession, and domestic activities, whether you're doing the dishes, doing the washing, whatever it is, cleaning. So spiritual life can be lived amidst all this. And then the second point is that the practice of the spiritual life is a science. Now, this is another very important point. There is all this airy-fairy things that you're entitled to certain advantages just because you have decided you're living a spiritual life. There's no such thing. It's a science, and you can actually work in a way that you actually get results as well. So the practice of the spiritual life is a science. So these 2 points we have to remember when we make an effort in our lives to do something that is of a spiritual nature. The next point is that comes out of ordered effort. So where do you put your ordered effort and how? So we are always here that the Theosophical path and many others, I also read it on a Christian website, meditation, study, and service is universal. These are the 3 requirements in all spiritual traditions and religions, if you dig deep enough. They all require a certain introspection, study, and service. So what and why? So what is that effort you are going to make? And what are the results of making such an effort? So this slide shows you the results of doing meditation, study, and service. So let's go through meditation first. So if you engage in meditation on a regular basis, and maybe you start off with 5 minutes per day, and then you maybe can do it up to 30 minutes every day. If you can get your will to be able to do this practice, these are some of the results you'll see. Illumination, serenity, purity, power, inspiration, idealism, and dedication. Now, I have a suggestion in case any of you have a paper and pen and you would like to make notes, or even mentally, when I say some of these words, maybe you can remember what pops out to you, and I'll tell you why at the end. So in meditation, what's popping out for you? Illumination, serenity, purity, power, inspiration, idealism, or dedication. What appeals to you? What is resonating to you today? So that's an important thing we can ask ourselves. And in study, now study is often misunderstood as theoretical study, accumulating information, reading more books, reading the whole library, things like that. However, study includes that, but it's not exclusive only to that type of study. Study is also self-study. So why would we study? So there are two things. First, there are sometimes you get hints from books and scriptures and what other people have said. But the next step to do is to study your own self against what you have studied in a book or from any other medium. So first thing is to gain knowledge. Now, again, knowledge is not information. The thing about the spiritual side of us is it grows through unfoldment, and the worldly side of us grows through accumulation. So that's the difference. We think if we accumulate information, we are growing. However, that doesn't happen. Spiritual growth is an unfoldment. So the point is to remember that you can't force unfoldment. Think of yourself as a flower in the making, more like. So we're all buds. So we're still opening. So to make that happen, you have to create the environment and the conditions for the flowering and unfoldment. So studying is one of them. So gain knowledge or wisdom. So that's the result of study, proper study, by studying our own character, studying our own conduct. So what that requires is distancing yourself from yourself and looking at yourself impartially. So you have to look at your own character impartially and your own conduct. Now, nobody is perfect. We make mistakes. So we just look at it and hope that you won't make it again. So it's very easy because we are all creatures of habit. We have the same behavior. If we are not conscious, we'll continue to behave in the same way. So that's another advantage of self-study. So you'll learn about yourself far more. And then you have to outgrow your vices. Oh, that's interesting. I think Christianity has 7 or 8 vices. I think Buddhism has the same number. All of us, I think Hinduism has the similar number of vices. So we all have the same types of vices. So how would we deal with vices? Do they just disappear? Do they grow or do they diminish? So that's another thing we can observe about ourselves. Vices are usually virtues that have gone to an extreme. So in a vice, you can actually find the virtue in its purest form when it's in balance. And then we have to find out through study what is our obstacles to self-illumination. That will come in the next slide. So I won't torture you trying to find out what are the obstacles to self-illumination. Jeffrey Hodson has mentioned some. We can look at it later. So the study helps us understand if we have any what are the obstacles to self-illumination. So these are the advantages of study. So we looked at meditation, we looked at study. So in study, what is popping out to you? Make a note, a mental note or a physical note. Is it gaining knowledge? Is it studying character, conduct, vices, obstacles, and self-illumination. What's popping up for you? And the next thing is service. Now, these three things are like a tripod. All of them are necessary. You can't say, oh, I'm good at meditation. I will devote my life only to meditation and I will gain spiritual awakening. Doesn't happen. You might go to some extent, but not all the way. So you need all three. So the service is the third pillar or a leg of this little stool. So what happens is service happens when spiritual awakening has happened. You're thinking about the spiritual life. And so eventually that person or soul is outward turned to be of help all the time, 24/7, just to let you know. If you reach that stage where you're always looking for opportunities to be of help, you will do it naturally in the end. You're not going to think about it. So that person would be outward turned, and their view is, like I said, beyond the family to the neighbor, community, and race, and whole of humanity. And in whatever role in the world you have been placed in. For example, Esme is an accountant, June has been a teacher and a history student. So Sylvia has been a microbiologist, Brett's an electrician. So wherever you are, wherever we are, we can be of service. If we do what we do for the one work, we're all engaged in the same work, but in different roles. So that's the service that is looked for in a person who is awakening spiritually and is interested in living the spiritual life in the world. It is quite possible that we've had incarnations where we've had a chance to become a monk. However, this lifetime, all of us present here, I'm assuming we're all still in the world and we are having to live a spiritual life in the world. Okay, now we come to the obstacles to self-illumination. I'm always interested in obstacles. So this is a list. Ask yourself what is popping up for you again. So malice, gossip, cruelty, selfishness, sensuality, hardness, hurtfulness, intolerance, self-righteousness, untruthfulness, dishonesty, hypocrisy. All these are obstacles to self-illumination. Now you might be wondering why some of them can actually be put under the same category.
What does self-illumination mean?
Thank you, Celia. Very good question. It's realizing that you are divine and all the barriers removed to know that you're divine. So you're identifying with your divine self. So that would be an illumination. The premise is in the spiritual life that we are in the darkness of the little self. So if we realize we are the divine self, we are self-illuminated. It's like enlightenment. That means there's light. So that's what it is. This is my short explanation.
Thank you.
So if we have any of this, we are not self-illumined, even if we have a seed of it. So which word is popping up for you? And why are there two words? Untruthfulness and dishonesty. Don't they sound the same? Don't they mean the same? But they're there. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
So where does that specific list come from?
Oh, from the study course we are doing.
Ah,
Yes.
cool.
So the person who wrote this is probably just given a few words. And I'm just putting it before you just to have a look.
Cool.
It's not fully comprehensive list. I'm sure we can come up with a long list.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, Maureen?
Yeah, what does hurtfulness mean? What does
Hurtfulness.
it mean?
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it
hurtfulness.
self-pity or something?
Pardon?
Is it self-pity or something like that?
No, not self-pity. It's more like
Being hurtful to someone?
yeah.
I don't know.
if you look at this, all this is towards others, isn't it? Malice, gossip, it's all towards other people. However, we have learned in our study course about karma and reincarnation, whatever we do to others, we're actually doing to our own self, isn't it? So hurtfulness is actually being thoughtless. So you're not even worried about whether you're hurting someone or not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that's one thing. Intolerance is like being impatient and things like that. So in the end, it is like a coin. It's one side is us and the other side is the other, and how we relate to both sides of it. So these are some of the obstacles. It's not possible to be enlightened because these things will make us heavy. If you look at the vibratory side of it, these things are of a much heavier vibration. And things that are positive that we read in the previous slide, which are illumination, serenity, peace, those are of a higher vibration. So if you want to get rid of these things, it is about transforming the negative into the positive. So I wouldn't say negative, positive, but a lower vibration and a higher vibration. How would we transform cruelty to kindness? So if we are looking at our own character and we find at least one or two of this, and we may not be like this all the time. It could be just maybe once a week or once a month even. If we become aware at that one moment when you're impatient with somebody, that's your chance to ask yourself, what made me impatient? What is it in me that has made me intolerant at this moment? Or if you see someone else doing wrong, you're feeling self-righteous. So these are the opportunities to ask ourselves, and that itself is an illumination. Just becoming aware that some of these vices exist. I think Chris Hensley gave me a book called Defy Gravity. And this is a book by Carolyn Myss, MYSS, and she wrote a list of the vices. And the descriptions, I thought I definitely have all of them. So in various, from 1 to 10, if you measure it, definitely I have all of them in different intensity. So it's very important in what instances in our life these things kind of surface. And maybe the first time you will notice it, second time, you will notice it after you have been impatient. Third time, again, you will notice it after you have been impatient. So maybe 10 times you will notice after. The 11th time, you will notice before it manifests. So that is the meaning of awareness. And that's the moment of illumination. Suddenly you have realized that this is what my 3 bodies are doing. And it's not you, but it's there in you. So that's that little bit of illumination. And that's what we are all working towards when we try to live the spiritual life. There is a quote in Radha Burnier's book called No Other Path to Go. And she says the very act of trying to find out what is spiritual is living the spiritual life. So which word popped up for you all? Let's see. So how do you test yourself? Now this is, I learned from my business networking colleague, Anne. She told us about this probably 2 years ago, and I have, it has remained with me, and it is a great way to check myself. So this is called ORBED, OARBED. And it's called above the line thinking and below the line thinking. Now, I have used this for the spiritual life. This is actually used in offices and corporate places to find out when you're interviewing a person and the language they're using and what kind of person they are, whether they are above the line thinkers or below the line thinkers. And I have found this very useful in the Theosophic life. And it's quite interesting. So a person who is a victor or a proactive person trying to live the spiritual life, that person would take ownership, they would be accountable, and they would be responsible. And it's not to anybody else outside, but to their own self. So, like I said, if you're looking at your vices, you're looking at your character and conduct. Do you take ownership for your mistakes? Do you take accountability for what you have done or said or even thought about? Because now next term, we're going to be studying about thoughts and emotions and going deeper into the subjects. So even our thinking, we are accountable to how we think. Like Simon mentioned at the start, we have come here together for a theosophical meeting. We're not just here to listen to me speak and go home and forget it. You're here, you could be sitting in front of the TV. Now you have Netflix, you have Xeon and Neon and all kinds of things. You could be sitting and watching that. What are you doing here? So ask yourself, because you feel accountable to your own spiritual self. So, and you're responsible too. You are responsible for your own self. No one else is going to do anything for you on the spiritual life or the spiritual path. It's all your responsibility. And then let's say we can't practice all these things. We might blame someone else. We might blame the weather. We might blame the coffee for our impatience. We could blame that the other person is not tolerant or kind. So I'm justified in retaliating. Or we can make excuses that, oh, I'm like this, I don't care. This is who I am. I'm not going to make any allowances for you. Or you deny it. This can't be me at all. I'm always kind and helpful. It's very easy to be deluded. Let me tell you that. According to Buddhism, delusion is one of the vices or obstacles. Greed, anger, and delusion. According to Buddhism, these three are obstacles to illumination or enlightenment. So blame, excuse, and denial. Yes?
Is the desire to help other people on the spiritual path or the desire to deal with humanity in general?
You have to speak up.
Oh, sorry. Is, in your opinion, the desire to help other people spiritually or to help the world a vice? Like, is that a desire that's from?
Okay, the question from Adam?
Tom,
sorry, Tom. The question from Tom is a desire to be of service and to help people on the spiritual path, is it a vice?
Because it's a desire.
What virtue of it being a desire?
Yeah.
Well, desire in itself is not wrong. It's just an energy. But if it's a selfish desire, how can such a great desire become selfish? So that's where the question is, right? If it's selfish, it becomes a vice. If it's an unselfish act, then it's a virtue.
It comes
the
down,
motive.
Yeah, it
It comes down to motive again.
But you can have your idea of what's good for someone, or you can have their idea of what's good for someone.
Actually, often when the do-gooders do the most harm.
Yeah. I was just bringing up that point. I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah, no, it's again, you have to look at your motive. And also, we might think we are being of service. Years ago, I read somewhere, you can only be of service when you can put yourself totally in the other person's spot. And we can't do that. There is a sense of separation still. The moment you can be one with all, that's when true service takes place. So until then, we are only trying. And maybe it's good to have that humility. And also, we don't know what's best for another person.
Yeah, that word humility, I think.
Yeah. Like Bill said last week when he talked about the path, the only savior for us is utmost humility at all steps. Suddenly when, let's say after working very hard, let's say with impatience and irritability is one of our vices. After meditating and doing all these practices, you become calm and serene. And then you will be preening and saying, now I'm a calm and serene person. So it's very, very hard to gain that unselfishness. So again, we might use below the line thinking and deny it, that we are, praising ourselves or deluding ourselves in our own mind. We may not say it aloud, but we might think how wonderful I am that I can meditate every day. And I have put up with all kinds of people on a day-to-day basis. So these kind of delusions can happen. So this is a great orbit to think about, even when we are trying to live the spiritual life. Ask ourselves, are we taking ownership? Are we taking ownership for not being humble enough? Are we accountable for everything we do and say and think? I think the thinking is the most difficult part. Yes.
I have a very general question. This thing and also observations about the obstacles. Do you need a person to be an adult to do this?
An
Could be
adult?
a teenager, could be a.
Oh yes,
a young
anyone.
person, any age.
Any age.
Let's say after 7.
Well, a person has to have an understanding what these terms would mean, right? Until that age. So Sylvia's question is this age restriction? Is there any age restriction for this? Like if you look at, our Indian mythological stories, our grandparents and parents would tell us these stories about all these qualities. So I don't think it matters what age you are, as long as you're at the age where you can comprehend what they mean, like positive, negative. Like my mother taught me at a very young age not to lie. So yeah, that's how. So you can teach, at any age.
For example, a teenager can be quite sure of doing something good, and maybe 10 years later, things completely the opposite.
Oh yes.
Just
So
an
Sylvia's
example of
comment
age.
is, Sylvia's comment is, when we are younger, we might think we're doing the right thing. Suddenly after 10 years, we'll realize that maybe it wasn't the right thing. However, we thought it was the right thing and we did it. So at any given point, we can only think to the level we are at and what we think is right. And that's the definition of dharma as well. The more evolved person, the dharma for them is different, because they are accountable and responsible for something else totally. And for those of us who are on the lower rungs, our dharma is different, and it's limited to our own comprehension and stage of evolution.
It's part of the unfoldment.
Yeah, it's part of the unfoldment. Thank you, Brett. So again, look at this, this orbit thing. There is the victim attitude, as if everyone else is to blame for our situation, or the victor attitude, which is you're taking accountability. And when you come to the context of karma that I think Simon did the presentation on, we are responsible for everything that happens to us. Of course, there are instances where cosmic forces come into play and not everything happens like, preordained, because this is a dynamic creation. Things can happen.
Like Bill's
Bill's diagram of last week. Our plan is to go in a straight and smooth path, but we have ups and downs. So that's what can happen to us. So it's our call whether to be the victor of our situation or a victim. So here is a guideline. I have found this really helpful. When I first read this orbit thing, I noticed every time I swam or flew down below the line, I knew it. So now I don't bother about below the line, and I don't bother about people below the line. I never swim down there. So it's always flying above. And there is a lady called, I don't know what her name is, Esther Hicks. Yeah, so she channels Abraham Hicks. She talks about being on a high flying disc. So it's up to us if we want to be flying high, or you go, maybe you find yourself dipping down, and in that you can come back up again. Remember this orbit. So don't worry too much if you see vices and stuff. Just take ownership to them. Say, I have got these things. I need to work on them. And the beauty of it, I realized when we were doing character building things some years ago, is even if you take up one vice to work on, it actually helps reduce all the other vices too. You don't have to say, oh, today I will work with not being cruel or hurtful or this. But if you just start trying to be more kinder and more thoughtful, all these things will disappear. So that's the beauty of it. So it's not a linear. Life is not linear, and that's the good news. Like the Good News Bible. Today, I'm giving you good news. Life is not linear. So that's good. It's incremental and exponential. So here is a question for all of you and me. I keep asking myself these questions. So where do you find yourself in the spiritual awakening journey that I have shared with you in the last few minutes? I have found that studying these things actually gives me an idea where I am. So where do you think you find yourself? Think about it. And if you remember what were the words that popped up for you, those are the things that are prominent in your life at this time. Whether it's the advantages of doing meditation, service, and study. So where are you at this moment? If you want, you can share during the question and answer session. And what do you think you should be paying attention to next? Now, this is what we all have to remember. We can only know our next step. We might want to be enlightened. However, the only step you can see is the next step. So what do you think is your next step? So I will leave these two questions with you for this week. Like after the session on karma, Craig asked us to look at our life and see what was happening because of karma and what was just happening. And same thing. These are the two questions for you for this week. Have a think about it. And what am I doing? I'm doing this because I have always found it difficult to have a regular meditation practice. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. So what is this? This is the mindfulness month. In July, I found this on Facebook and I signed up. So what it is, for November, people grow a mustache to raise funds for cancer. And then one of my friends was doing some sporty kind of thing to raise funds for young people. So this is for Mental Health Foundation New Zealand, and somebody has organized this mindfulness month. So I have to meditate every day in the month of July. What better way to get into a habit than to do it for more than 21 days? And then those of you who would like to donate, because I'm meditating, to the Mindful Health Foundation, let me know and I will give you the link to do it. So this is what I am doing. I'm taking my own self in hand to do something that I think I need to do. So there's the answer. This is what I'm doing. Now it's time for discussion and questions. We have 10 to 20 minutes maybe.
When you say purity, what do you actually mean with regards to purity?
Okay, Celia's question is, when we say purity, what do we mean by purity? Anyone would like to comment what the word purity means for you? I'll stop sharing. Uncluttered.
The one thought, the one purpose, the one idea.
A high vibration, keeping a high vibration.
Suzanne saying keeping a high vibration, that could be purity. Brett, what did you say? Being uncluttered in the mind?
And the one idea that focuses what let's say you're seeking an idea or purpose or whatever it is that it might be pure.
Focusing on one idea, yeah, and yes.
My perception is similar, but like you can consciously sort of contrive to think something, you can subconsciously think something opposite about the same thing. So you can be like a big sandwich of disagreement with yourself about something. And I think for me, purity is accepting all of my opinions and being that one unity of thought about it, rather than trying to force myself to think one way or another way, or to be a constant battle or swinging backwards and forwards about something, but just to be unified about what I think about something. whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, good point, Tom. Thomas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so Thomas was saying it's not to be in a dilemma or confused, but to be able to think in a unified manner about something, or be unified even. That could be purity. From what I have studied, Celia, purity is when you, maybe it's a purity of emotion. It could be purity of thought. So what you're doing is working on yourself not to have impurities, or if you recognize any impurity, to do something about it. Yeah. And it could be purity in food. Bill, did you want to say something?
No.
So it could be purity in food, like you're trying to eat good food.
Confusion.
Confusion. Well, confusion is a
completely confused.
That's a mental thing, isn't it? So what would be mental impurities? It could be thoughts that are not pure.
Pure in intention.
Pure in intention, yes.
Which might take some time.
Thank you,
but
Shirley.
contemplation you might find it.
Yes, thank you, Shirley. In this whole thing that we have talked about today, when we have looked at motive and intention, that can make your action pure or impure. The act itself may not be pure or impure, but our motive behind it. So if you're selfish, it becomes impure. This is all from a higher perspective. Please don't think it's the, the common definition. Selfishness is good until you are evolved to a certain extent that you want to stop being selfish. Yes, Ganeshji?
Just I'm reminded of the golden stairs. It says probably each one of the steps we could see one of them as the cause and the other one as the effect. Okay. It starts with a clean life and a pure mind, like that. So purity could be the effect of a clean life. Just a thought.
Thank you, Ganeshji. Those of you who are familiar with the golden stairs, Mr. Ganesh is talking about the first 4 things, which is a clean life, an open mind, a pure heart, and an eager intellect. Those are the 4 things out of 13. So Celia, so to gain purity, Ganeshji is saying the clean life might be important. That's the first step, isn't it? Because how do we attain a pure heart? If we had a pure heart, half of those vices wouldn't be there. We would have outgrown them, isn't it? That's the way to outgrow it. Yeah. Ganeshji, did you have something to say?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I already said it.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments?
Can I just say that it's been my experience that things just fall away, or vices fall away when they're no longer, there's not even any need to act or change. It naturally, they just fall away when they're no longer useful, when you're on a spiritual path.
Yes, most of the things we have to outgrow, even what is real and unreal. Sometimes what is real to us today, if you outgrow it, it becomes unreal. Just like when we play with dolls when we are kids, it's real, it's a real person, but we outgrow it. So same thing with our vices. Thank you, Suzanne.
I would suggest to all the suggestions, I would suggest that the word consistently is important. I mean, we can be pure 1 minute, but then impure another minute. Consistently would be the real purity, consistently.
Well, it will only become consistent if it becomes part of our character.
Yeah, exactly.
The initial stages, we would be oscillating between good and bad, pure and impure, but eventually it should become consistent. Thank you, Maureen. Yeah. Amma, did you want to say something?
Yes. Purity means we should be clean and pure in our physical and astral and mental bodies, no? Our emotions should be clean and pure. and our thoughts should be pure, is it not?
Yes.
Of course, physical cleanliness, everybody knows. Okay.
Yes, thank you. So I have a question for all of you. How would you purify your emotions? Blake, do you have something?
I think just balance.
Balance?
Because the emotions themselves aren't evil. Right? It
No.
takes a certain amount of like anger to motivate you to do something sometimes, or to solve a problem, or to be courageous. You need that energy. So I would say just moderation, and be aware when they're going to the extreme. I think it's when we have the extreme, we see disorder. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Blake. For those online, Blake was saying we have to focus on balance of emotions. So, yes, Maureen?
My suggestion about how to purify emotions is simply not to have any.
Well, good luck, Maureen.
Well,
Sorry, we are laughing. We're all emotional people.
The word that came to my mind was attachments, all attachments. So just to lose that.
Yeah,
You know.
attachments is another thing that motivates emotion. I read a book on Zen. I can't remember what the title was. And he said, the moment you have a reaction, it's an attachment to a belief.
Yeah.
And that I have been noticing. Anytime you have a reaction about anything, it's a belief that things should be in a different way, isn't it? And it's an attachment that things should be in a certain way.
I used to want to free myself from attachment, but now I've let go of that side.
Well done. So Thomas says he wanted to be rid of his desires. Now he's let go of the desire. So now he's free to be himself.
Just to support your point, I think emotions can be like water, and if they're flowing, they're healthy, and if they're stuck somewhere, then they start to stagnate. So like it's the bottling. Yeah, and then they can sweep us away. We can get carried away with the emotion. I think when it's at that point we've lost control. If we're still in control, then the emotion can be used, effectively, creatively.
Yeah, it takes, you're right, it takes an awareness, because they're there, those energies, emotions, thoughts are flowing. It's how we direct and use them. And HPB talked about turning vice into virtue. So unless you actually have those experiences, in your life that give you a contrast, then there can be no transformation, because there can be no alchemy, because you need the negative and the positive to relate to each other to help transform, to go above them both. So everything has excuse.
Yeah, so did you all hear that?
Yeah.
So yeah, emotions, as Blake says, is when it goes to an extreme, that's when you know there's an imbalance. But the emotions are important, otherwise some things you need the energy. And it's also interesting, Blake, sometimes you have to have these emotions to perform a certain action. You may not get that energy from anywhere else until we are evolved enough to get it from the will itself. We might be at a stage where we need our emotions to drive us. However, we need to know how to unwind as well and not make it our part of our character all the time. Yes.
That was encouraged in the Theosophical Society, as Maureen said, to remove emotions from our somewhat, to see things a bit clearer, or to behave clearer.
I'm not sure we can get rid of our emotions because it's part of our astral body. However, the point is to purify them, and also to be like, if this is my emotional body, this room, then what is part of the furniture? So it has to be higher emotions. Then if you're vibrating to a higher emotion, the lower emotions won't have space.
Yeah,
that is what we are encouraged to do. We can't kill it out.
Ravi Ravindra told us in his School of Wisdom, and you need the body. It's here, it has its use, and it has its purpose. You need to use its faculties, emotion, mind, and physical, for the service of the one. So you just can't disassociate yourself and disassociate yourself from your bodies and run sit in a cave in the Himalayas. because even there you're doing something, right? So to be in the world, but not of it, is the key. So having an opportunity to be in the world rather than a monastic life, as Sushma was referring to earlier, being a householder, if you like, is just as viable as someone doing some meditation in the Himalayas, if that's their Dharma. So, you know, you need the body, you need the emotions, you need the mind, you need the physical to be able to serve. Because how else can the one express itself if it doesn't have the bodies through itself to express?
Also, we have to remember we can only gain enlightenment when we are in incarnation. You can't do it when you're dead and you're only having the astral body and the mental body to work with. We need all the bodies. They have to work in harmony. You have to have that connection with all of them to become enlightened. So you're an enlightened being at all levels. So you need the incarnation. So you can't disassociate one or the other. Yes, Brett?
Well, perhaps it's the observance of that emotion rather than being in the emotion at the time. It's that maybe the difference.
Yeah, that's what Blake and Brett are saying. We had to gain mastery over our physical, emotional, and mental bodies. So you can't just cut it like, well, that's what those who don't want to deal with these things, they might cut themselves off from it, but there will come an incarnation when they have to learn to master it rather than cut it off. So, Thomas?
Oh, yeah, I was just curious from a philosophical society viewpoint, like you stated, you have to be incarnated to be enlightened, to become enlightened. What part of Theosophy, like, at what point, like in the literature, does that get established as a truth? And was that on the basis of personal insight or reference to other scriptures or whatever? Like, yeah, I'm just curious. Like,
well, the secret is those who know won't tell you. So, so if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. The second thing, the second thing is, if you look at the life of the Buddha, he was an extremely evolved person even before his current incarnation, where he gained Buddhahood. So he had to come into incarnation to do that job of becoming a Buddha. So that's what I would say is an example to give us the indication that we do need to be in incarnation to be enlightened. Because like I said, we have to gain mastery of all aspects of ourselves, because becoming a master is to master every part of yourself. To become enlightened. So all parts of you are lightened.
And if you
That's
think,
what it
and
is.
if you think about it, the physical is the lowest level of manifestation, right?
I don't know.
Solid liquids and gases, right? Can't get any denser unless you go super physical. So here in this body at this level is where everything is focused, and bang, it all happens here. I mean,
It needs to, well, it
right?
needs to happen here. That's all it is. It's like this computer. Without this physical computer, we couldn't be having a super physical internet meeting.
So much
Isn't it? It's the same thing. So it's the same thing. I mean, look at all of us. Would this have been possible 50 years ago? And here we are. We have people from India. We have people from Auckland. We even have someone logged in from Russia as well. So this is a miracle in itself.
The military, they would have been able to 50 years ago.
Yeah, whatever is.
Well, they created the internet.
Well, even the GPS was a military thing in the past. So everything the military does, we will get it. So eventually, however, the point is, what we have studied in Theosophy, that we are not limited by space and time to connect with each other, has become a physical reality. So it's the same way with enlightenment. It has to be a reality at all parts of us. You can't be enlightened astrally and not enlightened physically.
Yeah, that's another way to think about it.
Yeah.
For me,
Nice.
Yes, Martha?
perhaps saying the same thing in different words. For me, the path or the journey has been about living skillfully. It's more about learning to live skillfully, which means living in the world, letting the world be your teacher, being open to the world, being engaged with the world, as opposed to trying to transcend the world. That was that was part of my journey, and it got me so far, but something, you know, through an experience, I was turned back to learn how to be skillful in the world. And so perhaps that's other people's experience too, I don't know, or perhaps it's particular to me. Yeah.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Thanks,
That's a
Malcolm.
very
Sorry.
important point, because even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that yoga is skill in action.
Mm.
And the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, he was essentially wanted to go and retire and be a monk, and he got told to go back basically into the world and serve.
Yes, and there was a long time ago, I watched a TED talk by somebody who did go to the forest as a young man and did lots of retreat and meditation. And he thought he succeeded. And the moment he came back to the world, he was gone. That equilibrium he had achieved when there was no stimulation can easily create an imbalance. So the test is in the world.
Originally, at the beginning of the talk, you said enlightenment was a form of science, but I tend to view my life as being a blend of science and an art. I think there's an art to life as well for each individual.
Thank you, Brett. Brett is saying that life is both a science and art. The context I mentioned about practice of the spiritual life as a science is in the context where, you know, we are working with laws, the different laws. The art is in knowing how to live skillfully, like Malcolm said. However, we have to be aware we are working with definite laws at all levels. So if you do, like, I'm not sure about chemistry at the moment, but if you put 2 atoms of hydrogen and oxygen, you will get water. So that's the kind of law I'm talking about. So the spiritual life works with laws. I sometimes meet a lot of people who would say, oh, I'm such a good person, only good things should happen to me. Doesn't work like that. I haven't done anything wrong to anybody. Why are all these things happening to me? Doesn't work like that. No one's giving you a certificate.
I remember telling a wise person, having a talk to a wise person when I was a lot younger, saying all these bad things are happening to me, and he said, oh, you're doing everything right.
That's also true. I got a letter saying the lords of karma were smiling on me. That's good. So yeah, that's what so we have to be you know, we have to look at the context whenever we see or read something. Look at the context. I purposely retain the title for this session today, The Spiritual Life for the Man of the World, because today we're too carried over by the word man and woman and in between and gender, this, that, and the other. All that's irrelevant. Look at the context. What is a man of the world? We are all man of the world. None of us are monks. Unless there's someone logged in on the physical plane who's a monk. So, yes, Brett?
Well, it is included in our description as human.
The word human is interesting. The HU means perfect. Man means a person who has manas, which is the thinking principle. So we are actually not human yet, because we are not perfected man. Yeah, this whole English thing about humankind, I don't believe in it at all. Until you're all part of a perfected humanity, please come and tell me then. Until then,
almost human.
Pardon?
Where women come into it. I believe that a lot of burden for the human race comes from sexuality, and you know, we have to have babies and everything, but there's a lot of sort of rubble and dust that comes off it. But as we get older, we can let this terrible burden go more and more. And so, and if we survive the young life, you know, you're starting to get some, you know, some real life, and you can start to think, be able to think about things and go to Theosophical societies and stuff and realise that there's a whole different way of being, just other than survival.
Yes, thank you, Shirley. So Shirley was saying it's so important to have the opportunity to think differently and from a different perspective than just be carried away by the physical life. So the important thing, coming back to human and man, as HPB says, we are moving from subhuman stage of evolution to becoming perfected human. So we are still animals. Let's not delude ourselves that we have become human fully. We are only fully human when we attain adeptships. Until then, we are still evolving. So we are evolving even when you gain adeptship. However, we would have reached the stage of a perfected man or woman, whatever it is. Until then, we have to be aware of our animal nature, and that's what is a spiritual life. To become aware of the animal nature, gain mastery over it, and not let it be carried away by those instincts that Shirley was talking about. Instincts, whether it's food, clothing, shelter, and other aspects of our human, not human, man, man, woman kind.
We're evolved animals.
Yeah, we are just animals with a brain. Sorry, thinking. We only have a thinking principle that's more developed than the other creatures. That's all it is. And
Can I just say I have a heart too? I have a heart too.
well, the heart, yes, that would come under intuition, Suzanne. That would be developing a higher mind. So we're still stuck in the mind.
Yeah,
So almost human.
Yeah, we're almost human.
yeah, it's interesting, the correspondence in the sevenfold nature of the human. You have the Atma corresponds to the physical, the intuition corresponds to the heart or astral, and the higher and lower minds correspond to each other. So you've got that correspondence and relationship, a reflection from above down to below. So willpower, when you get up, as Blake was saying, and get into it, that's action. It's all very well saying, I'll get up in the morning and meditate. Well, you physically have to do it. You have to get up, do some stretches, sit on a chair, or whatever you do. So that, from the will, corresponds at the lowest level to physical and getting in the muck and doing it, and getting out and going for a run in the morning, even though you want to stay in bed because it's cold or cozy. And then your intuition, that heart, that open heart that Suzanne is referring to, relates from the intuition, because that's the connection to the one. The intuitive level is the connection linking from the higher mind, individuality or soul, to the one, the Atman. So there's that correspondence, that reflection in our nature. And if we're aware of that, then life becomes a little bit easier. And I was saying to Sushi at the moment, I'm going through a lot myself. And the focus and energy and intention that I have, things are starting to change. It's quite interesting to watch. And another thing, go out on the weekend, sit in a cafe. This is what I did yesterday, on Sunday, and have thinking time. Write down your notes, write down your thoughts, because it's like stuff goes on in the week. Just have some chill out time. Go away from your spouse, from your partners, or whatever, your flatmates, and just chill out. And that's really good to do.
Yes, I have been doing that since 2015. So
Yeah.
good on you, Simon. He has picked it up in the last 2 years.
Oh, thanks very much.
I used to go out to do my thinking time. So I've been doing that since 2015. So yeah. So thank you, everybody. I think we will close here. We're almost at 8:13. We close at 8:15, as you all know. Any other last burning questions or comments? If not, we can carry on over cups of tea.
Yes.
Sushma, I wanted to ask, is enlightenment the final initiation?
Is enlightenment the final initiation?
Well, it is when you become an adept, yes, Sama, because that's it, the Jivan Mukti, a liberated human being, or you've you've been resurrected or ascended in the Christian tradition. There are 5 stages in consciousness. So you've got the birth, the baptism, the transfiguration, the crucifixion, and the ascension, or the Jivan Mukti in the Hindu tradition at the end. Yeah.
Well, that is only up for the human incarnation cycle.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Just to encourage all of you, there are many enlightenments as well. So let's look out for them. Okay.
All right. Thanks, team. Fantastic. I'll formally close the session. And next week, remember, we're having a panel to discuss everything we've gone over in the study course. So please do join us. Now, I'll just turn the camera around for you guys online. You see everyone in the lodge.
Also, please bring any questions for next week. We are having all our presenters, most of them on the panel next week.
Yeah.
There's only one chat. I'll just have a look at that. it says Malcolm, about Malcolm, well said, and then Sue says thank you.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here today.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you guys yeah, so we'll have a cup of tea and usual. We have to go down to the library, but we're in the small room upstairs tonight because it's pretty chilly.
Bye bye, friends.
Bye. Hello,
Isis, say hello.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Good.
Good, thanks. Yeah, Isis is from Brazil. She's the president of the Inter-American Federation.
Sending her a hug.
And Sylvia is sending you a hug, Isis.
And she's currently in Russia.
And
currently
she's
in
traveling
Moscow.
around in Russia.
That's it.
Yeah. So you'll
Bye
have
bye,
to
bye bye.
So bye, Isis.
Bye everyone. See you later.
Hugs to Isis in Russia. And hello, Lara May from Australia.
Sydney.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
There's Pam from Crofton Downs.
Yes. And Maureen from Far North, Vicky from Hamilton, Ganeshji from Auckland.
And there's
Maureen.
dolls in the background there.
So thank you, everybody. See you all next week. All of you have to be present. I am only interested in people who come regularly.
Where's the cat? The cat.
Whose cat?
That's somebody had the cat.
No, that was Esther. She's in hospital. She was. Yeah. Okay, everybody. See you all next week.
All right, we'll turn it all off. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Vicky.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Isis. Bye.